Intelligent Ramblings with your host, Bill Alton. Co-hosted by Gary Glenn and William Howington with help from John Coleman.
Well, welcome to Intelligent Ramblings. Tongue ain't working. Fix my tongue here right quick. Welcome to Intelligent Ramblings. My name's Bill Lofton. I'm your host with my co-host tonight, Gary Glenn and John Cone. Yeah, John Cone. Okay. My brain's not working tonight. I've been sick for about a week, and I'm about 75% in the brain department right now. Might be COVID, the second part. What can I say? Other than my illness, how you guys doing? Gary's on
Good,
location in Myrtle Beach.
On the road again.
On the road again. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, we originated this show from Tennessee and from ballparks and now from the beach.
Well, like I said, we're going to be on. May not be anybody but us, but we'll be here every week. You can count on that. Well, in the news department, President Biden condemns Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for airstrike on clearly marked convoy. The big word being clearly marked convoy that killed 7 8 workers, including one American. I don't know what to think about that.
That's not a good thing. I'll tell you what to think about that. That's not a good thing at all.
And the thing is, they were in touch with the Israeli defense people. And you know, I mean, we need Israel as an ally in that area because we don't have any more that we can really trust. And I don't think we can trust Israel that much. But, because they're Israel, it's me. But, which I understand because they're surrounded by enemies. But, I don't know. I mean, how far can you go?
The world at first was completely, I think, most of the world, except for obviously the enemies and the people who have axe to grind, most of the world, I think, was on the Israel side after their first response to Hamas, which was completely unprovoked. But now, you know, they better watch it. The tide of public opinion, which already in this country has swung a little bit, the pendulum has swung the other way, is going to keep swinging. I don't think that's a good idea at all. They need to kind of rein this in a little bit. Understood they need to defend their territory, but if you say like clearly marked, and they're getting into the aid workers thing. You know, I was doing some research the other night, and I stumbled upon the My Lai thing, William Calley. You remember Lieutenant Calley? You read about some of that stuff, and it's just horrifying. War does strange things to people and makes them do funny things, not just shooting one another. They some of them just go off the deep end.
Well, the thing about war is there's nothing good about it. Nothing.
Nope. War, what
nothing
is it
good
good for? Absolutely nothing.
I mean, it's the lack of communication between two parties is what war is. And it is, I'm a veteran, and I'm 100% against war for any reason. Any reason. There is no good reason to start a war. You know, if somebody attacks you, you have to defend yourself. But just going out and starting a war is just... And what Israel's doing now is they've gone past what they set out to do. I mean, they've killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. There were 1,000 Israelis killed, and there were 150 hostages taken. are still there.
Mm-hmm.
But think about how many Palestinians have been killed that had nothing to do with this.
Over 30,000.
Women and children.
Mostly.
You know.
That is sad. Well, I think the missile strike caught President Biden by surprise because his response was, that was incredibly stupid and I'm angry. I haven't seen anything else other than that from the White House.
Well, this is, as I said, that's not a good thing at all. And I don't know who Netanyahu is trying to placate over there. I just don't know. I think some of the people in Israel are kind of looking at this with funny and jaundiced eyes now, much like what we stumbled into in some of those quagmires we got into in Vietnam and Afghanistan.
Does some of this,
Not a good thing.
do things like this strike you as a lack of discipline among the Israeli troops? I mean, who the hell puts a rocket into a clearly marked van that's carrying people that are, not even, they're obviously not Palestinian.
They're non-combatants.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like somebody just got stupid all of a sudden. Either that, it was intentional, and it's so bad it just seems stupid.
Well, there's a malady sweeping the world, John, and it's called SFB. And the last two letters of that are S for brains. I'll let you imagine what the first word of that acronym
I have filled in the
is.
blanks.
SFB.
Thank you, Gary.
You can fill in the blanks, and it's not hard to do and I see it every day. And I look up and I just shake my head and go SFB. And I don't know what the problem, when you ask what people are thinking, that's the problem. They're not thinking.
Yeah.
Somebody ought to be brought up on charges for that, and crucified. Somebody needs to go to, something needs to be done about that. It's got to a point now that Israel needs to back off. The part of Gaza that's near Israel, Gaza needs to be bulldozed, put a big wall between them, but they need to back this up now. They've gone too far, in my opinion. Well,
I think in the opinion of a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, seems that Donald Trump's Bible. I spoke on that in the last episode briefly. Thought it was kind of funny, but then I started researching a little bit, and then I noticed that Donald Trump's Bible costs $59.99, which puts it on the more expensive end of the King James versions, but it does have extra content. This Bible does. It's called God Bless the USA Bible. It's got a flag on the front of it, and includes a copy of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the handwritten lyrics to the chorus of God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood. Ain't that cool?
Oh well.
Well, I got a quick video that'll give one person's opinion.
Bibles during Holy Week. I mean, this is the week that we that believe in Christ, the real Christ, deal with the crucifixion today of Jesus, Good Friday, and Sunday, the resurrection. And for him to use that as a marketing tool where the money goes to Donald Trump,
right?
Not to a cause, not to help the poor, not even to his campaign, to him, which means he's really doing this to pay off lawyers to get out of the porn star situation, defrauding bank situation. And to do this shows somebody that is not only not religious, but is totally insensitive to those that are. Yeah. To take the Bible and say that this is the only Bible endorsed by Donald Trump. If you believed it was the sacred word of God, who are you or I to endorse the word of God?
Good point, Reverend.
Not a big Al Sharpton fan, but that was a good point.
I was going to exactly what I was going to say, Gary. I'm not an Al Sharpton fan, but I saw that and I said, that's pretty to the point. I mean, to have a Bible with the American flag, and you think Jesus would have gone USA, USA, USA. Think about that. It just,
I think
I don't know.
King James and the founding fathers are rolling in their respective graves right now. It's just so bad.
Well, in that photo op, where Trump got called up on, didn't he hold the Bible upside down?
Yes, he did.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, Andrea, the Bible, the Bible and the Constitution, 2 books he has never read. Isn't that the truth? And he had the Bible upside down when he forced his way in and took some peaceful protesters and had his armed thugs move them out of the way so he could pose for a picture with the Bible, which he held upside down. The hypocrisy is overwhelming. I mean, if you're going to look up hypocrisy in the dictionary, it's going to have a picture of Donald Trump standing there with an upside down going, God bless America.
Hey, Bill, I think you're on to the next big thing, which is the Donald Trump endorsed Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Oh, yeah.
Look for it in stores near you.
Well, it's one of those new things that'll be coming up soon.
Isn't an upside down flag the international symbol for distress?
It is.
Well, I wonder what the upside down Bible means then. that must be the cosmic signal for distress.
Exactly. It means the devil is after you, buddy.
Oh man.
I don't even know how to. As a Christian, I think it. What's the word I'm looking for? God, I hate it when my brain doesn't work. It's not embarrassing. It is embarrassing, but it's.
Well, it's hypocrisy.
Irreverent.
It pisses me off. How's that? I can't think of the right word, so I'll say that. It pisses me off. I'm a Christian. Somebody asked me about my tattoos recently and why did I get them? And I said, well, I thought that if St. Peter could deny Christ 3 times, me as a mortal, how could I not? I don't have the character of St. Peter by any means. But that's why I got this done. You can see that.
Nice.
And I got another one on the other side. And that says, basically, I'm a Christian American. So if I ever get caught by the Houthis over there, or the Russians, or one of those people that really don't like us Christians, and American Christians in specifics, I ain't got a chance. They're gonna lop off my head and I'll be done with it. So I cannot deny I'm a Christian American. I put it on my shoulders. So if ever it comes up, I'm taken care of. But the hypocrisy of it all, I still can't think of the right word. But it's unbelievable to me that somebody would actually, a politician would do that. And millions of people who call themselves Christian can look at this and go, oh, it's okay. I want to go buy one. I mean, I don't.
Well, that's the the appeal to the far right who thinks that they're the only way to go. That the King James Bible is the spoken word of God, straight from God to the scholars that transcribed it. There is no other translation, and I mean it's an appeal to the. I don't want to say, because a lot of people like the King James Bible. I don't have a problem with that, but it's an appeal to the people whose minds are made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up, and this is the way it is, and I have no leeway one way or the other. When Jesus himself said he has not come to call the righteous to repentance, but the sinners. So you can take that for what it's worth, I suppose.
Speaking of Israel, Iran accuses Israel of bombing the consulate in Syria, which killed 2 of its top generals. Well, if Iran would quit giving bombs to the Houthis and to Hamas, maybe Israel wouldn't bomb them. If they even did it.
Chance of that.
You know, I mean, if in fact that Israel did it, they haven't proven it. But, I mean, those people are crazy enough that they bomb themselves and then blame it on Israel.
Or just make the whole thing up.
Yeah. Have one of their booby traps go off and blow up themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think they verified that something exploded, and they confirmed that those people were killed in the building. To me, what I'm hearing is that it runs the risk of widening the war, which is already bad enough, but it's going to expand it into Syria and Lebanon and bring in more combatants from different groups, and it just makes it worse. It doesn't make it better.
They may be trying to expand the war by doing that and blaming Israel.
Who knows? I don't. That's for sure.
The thing about it is now that the news cycle has moved on from Ukraine to the war in the Middle East. And then in another week or two, it's probably going to move on from that to somewhere else, unless some of this stuff keeps happening, which brings it back to the forefront.
Yeah.
Ukraine is now the forgotten war. I mean, it's still going on. People are still dying.
Oh yeah.
People are still fighting and dying, but the news cycle moves on. The voracious beast that needs to be fed with the immediate rather than the important.
That's so important, Gary. It's the important things that too often get left out. And I think some of the good news about Ukraine is, hopefully in Europe, it has not lost its importance, and they are still actively supporting Ukraine, the countries in the EU.
Well, if we can get to them, go ahead.
And obviously, it's the part of the world that is affected, which is the more important thing to them. I mean, that's an obvious statement, but my point, I guess, is that here in America, the networks and all of the people that cover these things just keep flitting from the most, for the lack of a better term, the most sensational thing that's going on, rather than sometimes the most important thing that's going on. Not saying you shouldn't cover things that are breaking news, like when that bridge got smacked by that barge the other day. Things like that have to be covered. But it's kind of like, okay, what's going on now with X, which was pretty important 8 months ago? Is it any less important now because the time has passed? Are we just bored with it?
The Ukrainians sure don't think it's less important.
Oh, no.
They're hanging on for dear life.
We get bored with the news cycle, so it has to change. I absolutely agree.
Yep, she's right.
Here's a question. Where do you guys go for your news? Bill and Gary, where do you go to check on the news every day? Or do you check on it every day?
I usually watch ABC and CBS. I can't get. I mean, does Fox have national news program that comes on every night?
Their cable news network does. That's in entertainment, infotainment that never stops. So yeah, they do. Fox does.
Because I haven't been able to find it. I'm on South Carolina stations, and I can get a Fox station, but I can't find the national news on Fox.
We generally watch.
I find myself going.
Tune in almost.
Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say hi.
Okay. John, go ahead. Gary, give him a second.
Sorry, Gary. I
Had to be
find myself going to AP News and CNN, but there's very little actual news on CNN. I watch a lot of business news on CNBC and Bloomberg, and if I'm in the truck, I'll listen to NPR on the radio. That's about, that's more or less where my news comes from.
Allie says TikTok. Yeah, there's TikTok. And I agree with the. Let me interject real fast, Gary. I agree with you, John, on the AP. If I'm in my studio, that's what I do. Is I go to AP and read all the headlines there.
And their photos are like the best in the world.
Yeah.
So.
I generally.
All right, Gary, your turn.
All right, I subscribe to some news services, and I read on that. Some actually things that are online, which occasionally will have actually a print edition of that as well. So I subscribe to some things like that. And then also we look, a lot of times at home, we'll watch the NBC News, and then the station that we have back home actually delays the ABC News for a half hour. The national news mostly runs at 6:30 around the country, but WSB runs it at 7 o'clock. So we'll watch the ABC News at 7 o'clock because, and we like the ABC News feed because at the end they do a feature called America Strong, and it's almost always something very positive and very uplifting, which shows the strength of Americans. So we generally watch that, and I appreciate that.
Allie says people won't use TikTok because they're worried about our information, but Meta takes our information before TikTok did. Just saying. Over 1,000 small businesses created on TikTok to build our economy. That's true.
Well, I generally use Meta, which used to be isn't that Facebook now? Or what used to be Facebook. I generally use that just to keep up with people who are celebrating birthdays and anniversaries and who need prayer. Kenny says he likes the ABC World News also. Yeah.
Every once in a while, we watch. Fran and I watch the NBC News together in the evening.
Yeah, Lester
really
Holt does a good job with that ABC.
The old broadcast news stations, the three broadcasters that we had back in the day when we all had antennas were ABC, CBS, and NBC. And we still watch NBC News in the
I don't
evenings.
watch NBC because NBC it's almost slanted towards the right, to the left. Is that right?
I think I would agree with that.
NBC is liberal, and I quit watching it years ago because of that. Because I want to get a little bit, you can't really believe about half what they're saying anyway, but it's at least CBS and ABC are a little bit more in the middle. NBC is hardcore liberal.
Well, sometimes you have to read between the lines and all those things. John, you remember when NBC was Huntley and Brinkley and CBS was Walter Cronkite, and then ABC later came along with Peter Jennings. That was the main anchor for ABC News and did a wonderful job for many years.
Those were the best of times for network news.
Oh, at one time, Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America. And when Lyndon Johnson saw that Cronkite came out against the Vietnam War, he said, "We've lost Cronkite, we've lost the country." And he was right. Wall Street Journal is pretty good. I think most people would probably agree with that, Andrea. And also, I'll tell you, every now and then I'll tune into a BBC broadcast, which is an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I like watching BBC. It's absolutely a different take on our news. Had a 7.4 magnitude quake hit Taiwan, worst in 25 years. There's a tsunami alert for Japan at this point.
I bet there is.
The Florida court to allow abortion vote. But the ban takes place in 6 weeks. So it's going to be in the general election in Florida, and we'll see how that goes. I think the abortion is going to be a major part of this election.
It has been in the past. It is sure to be this election cycle too.
That's a tough one there. Well, I'll say this. Personally, this is personal. I am personally opposed to abortion, but I am personally also opposed to making it illegal. Because what happens then is you have illegal abortions. Having said that, there has to be a line drawn somewhere. Otherwise, you might as well say, well, once the baby's born, just shoot it. Right? You get to some point.
Well, I think we had
viability.
I think we had a kind of a nationwide agreement on at 24 weeks before the Dobbs decision came down from the Supreme Court. And that is the time during the term when the fetus becomes viable. If it happens to be born at that point or later, it has a good chance of surviving. But I guess they just felt like they had to take it to the Supreme Court and use the court to overturn what was a pretty good working situation that protected people like you're talking about, Gary. You and I might not agree about it, but we agree that it's not the government's choice to make. It's the person who is closest to that baby. That's who we have to trust to make the right decision.
Well, it's got to be. I see what Allie says there too. It's got to be a decision between the mother, the health care professionals. I don't think in any terms abortion should be used for birth control. That seems to me to be just kind of heinous.
I agree with that. I'm personally not. I'm personally anti-abortion, but I'm also anti telling a mother what to do. With their body.
Well, not only that. Now you're getting into the situation where the health, well, the viability of the fetus. I mean, come on. See, that's the whole thing. That's the SFB syndrome again, right? Reasonable people can come to reasonable decisions, but the problem is reason is now out the window, and we're all depending on emotion, which by definition is not reasonable. We're all depending on emotion to guide everything that we do, which is just nuts. We cannot use these visceral feelings that we have to guide our every decision. Well, I'm trusting my gut. Well, yeah, sometimes that's okay. But when reason is completely thrown out the window, you're asking for trouble. And we're having that, baby. Trouble with a capital T. Again, personal opinion.
I agree with you, Allie, that the women are dying because of complications and are risking their lives. Well, what'd you think about that guy in his SUV ramming the security gate at the FBI field office in Atlanta? Seems the security protocol worked. He tried to go through and they just threw that thing up and it stopped him just like that. Some idiot from South Carolina. That's all I've heard about it yet so far is some idiot from South Carolina decided he's going to run on in there. He didn't care if they wanted to stop him at the gate. So they just hit that button and it goes boop, boop. Worked.
Yeah, SFB. Sometimes you go looking for trouble and you find it.
All he did was end up in a hospital and he'll be in jail forever and a half. They don't have to worry about his stupid ass anymore. He'll be in another.
Yeah,
wish it could be that simple with all of them, but
with all of the people, all the stupid asses out there. Yes.
I mean, there's
sometimes I think the whole world wakes up every morning and eats a big heaping bowl of dumbass.
No doubt.
And how many bowls of it does it take before some of these things are good ideas?
Oh gosh, can you imagine that dude gets in his truck in South Carolina and says, I am, by God, going to Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm going to crash the gate at the FBI office.
What the hell is he going to do when he got out? He didn't have any weapons or anything in his car.
He had a good 2-hour drive time to come to his senses. He still didn't do it.
Think about this. In what universe is this a good idea? No known universe.
That I know of.
No,
this one or alternate universes.
There's several alternate universes in which this is not a good idea.
Right. It takes all kinds. Kinds to keep the world revolving, no doubt.
I guess.
We got our share of idiots out and around, out and about. Well,
yep.
Why don't we move on to another aspect of intelligent ramblings about right now.
All right. I guess it's my turn. Well, tonight I want to talk a little bit about something I read in the newspaper. Actually, it was online, but it's going to be in the print newspaper as well. And one of my favorite columnists, a guy by the name of Dick Yarborough. And now I don't agree with everything he always says, but we're G-Haul pretty good every now and then. And today he was talking about some of his mentors and people who have made a difference. And he talked about a guy by the name of Jasper Dorsey. And the basic thrust of this column that he wrote today was, we are put in the world to make a difference for the better. In other words, is the world a better place because I am in it? And that's something I think we all need to ponder. What have I done to make this world better because I am in it? You know, in the past, it used to be that one of the purposes of schools was to make sure that the people who graduated from those schools were good citizens of the country. In other words, they were to make the country a better place because they are part of that country. And now it's hard to get them to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which bothers me intensely. I want to do like some of the people have said, go to those veterans who are sitting there without legs and tell them why you don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you remember the end of the movie? The end of the movie. And everybody talks about the beginning of the movie, Saving Private Ryan, because it was so realistic, the storming the beaches on Normandy at D-Day. But at the end of the movie, the actor portraying Private Ryan, at the time as an older man, basically goes to the grave of the captain and says, was it worth it to save me? Saving Private Ryan. Was it worth it to save me? And he turns to his wife and he says, tell me, I was a good man. And she says, you are. You've made the world a better place, in other words, by being in it. I think that's something we all need to ask ourselves. Is the world better because I am here and for what I have done? And if not, we need to sincerely rethink our way of living. God grant that we can look at our loved ones toward the end and say, have I been a good man? Have I been a good woman? And if we're lucky, somebody may say, you are. That's my time. My time out. Thanks for yours. I'm Gary Glenn.
This webcast is brought to you by William Lofton Photography. They can be found at williamlofton.com. Offering event residential portraiture at williamlofton.com.
All right. So we're going to start a new series. This is 3 talks long. And our first talk is tonight. And we're going to talk about economic inequality, and why it's important. I think it's one of the more important topics in economics that moves over into politics, the larger society, and we really need to understand it. So when we do these podcasts and we see your comments and hear your comments about inflation hurts, my job doesn't pay enough, I can't save money, we can't afford to have children, my rent is going up, I can't afford a new car, I'll never be able to buy a house. Here's why inequality is important. It's the source of many of these difficult problems that are part of life today. When wealthy people can grow their wealth faster than regular people can increase their income, it creates inequality that breaks down democracy. That is huge. all the worst aspects of capitalism take over, and we need democracy to restore a fair balance. When I say breaks down democracy, I mean look at the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. You can probably find others. Our country's revolution in the 1770s, probably another example of this. But like I said, it's a huge topic, so we're going to break it down into 3 parts. Part 1, this week, this is fine. Part 2, next week, inequality takes over. And part 3, the last week, is restoring the balance. So part 1, this is fine. The longest running golden era took place in the post-war economy from the end of World War II to the early 1970s. For over 25 years, good jobs were available, the U.S. economy was growing, prices were stable, and the outlook was positive. This was a time when real wages, your pay after inflation, were actually increasing and housing was affordable. In the early 1970s, however, support for the golden era started collapsing. Here's why. The Bretton Woods Agreement broke down. This was an agreement that was formed in 1945, and it stabilized all the major currencies of the world. And they were all pegged to the value of the US dollar. And the agreement broke down because the US couldn't keep the dollar value stable. Number 2, the US dropped the gold standard. So while Bretton Woods was coming apart, the US ended the gold standard for the dollar. We would no longer redeem a dollar for $1 worth of gold. You heard me right. You could take a Federal Reserve bill, dollar bill, to the bank and get yourself a dollar's worth of gold. That never happened in real life, but that was the backing of the dollar. The price of gold had been held to $35 per ounce for years, and now they cut it loose and the price of gold was set by the market. The last thing that happened was OPEC and the oil crisis. The OPEC oil cartel created an oil supply crisis. This raised oil prices and started an inflationary period, which lasted on and off until the early 1980s. Here's an important point about the golden era. It formed the basis for a lot of economic theory that assumed everything would always be this way. And in fact, we know that is not true. The economists and people in general thought the economy would keep growing, good jobs would always be available, housing, cars, groceries would be affordable. Children would grow up, go out in the world, and have a better life than their parents. In the early 1970s, the golden era collapsed and reality set in. From then until the 1980s, a series of events would bring in a new era, one where the market knows best, the government is not your friend, and it's everyone for themselves. Okay, so join us next week when we talk about part 2, inequality takes over. All right, thank you.
Well, here we are. It's Weather or Not. I want to talk about the weather a little bit this week. Seems that we've been having a lot of weird weather, and it seems to be getting weirder. As in, California's got rivers of water that seem to be coming in from the Pacific, and you get it these three days of just solid water coming in, and then you have a couple days off, and then another river of water comes in. So the bottom of the southern part of California has been inundated this winter with storms that have flooded the southern part of the state on a regular basis, to the point where parts of it are starting to fall off. And I've always said, I said a long time ago that I thought that California was going to fall off in the Pacific, because I consider it a den of iniquity. I mean, that's just the way I feel. But anyway, and now you got snowstorms up in California, up in the mountains, that are where they're getting 10, 12 feet of snow, even late into the year like this. And as soon as the snow stops, that's when the fires begin. And it's that state seems to be in a chaos when it comes to weather. Then you've got massive snowstorms up in the north that they hadn't had a snowstorm in New York City in a couple of years, and they've had like 3 in the last 2 months. So the weather is real. You can't predict it, not like you used to. And you got tornadoes seem to have moved up out of the south. I mean, for many years, you think tornadoes, you think Kansas, Missouri, in that area. Well, now that's where they're hitting, and then it shifted to the south, where it seemed like the south was getting hit with tornadoes on a regular basis. Although we did have one drop down in Georgia just outside of Atlanta last night. We just hadn't had the tornadoes that we had. They seem to be moving back up towards the north. So I'm thinking the weather's maybe shifting to the north. It's really hard to tell at this point. The heat in the south. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and it affects me more, but it seems like it's really damn hot down here in the summer. And we're going to have a chorus of cicadas this year, like they haven't seen in like 30 years, where they have 2 different kinds of cicadas coming in at the same time. They sit under the ground for 7 or 8 years, and they come up and make it. If you're from the south, you know what I'm talking about. It sounds like a chorus out in the woods next to your house. And this year we've got 2 different species of cicadas that are coming up, and it's going to sound like a chorus on steroids all summer. So we've got that to look forward to. But my point is that the weather seems to be, well, you can't really tell what the hell is going to happen next. It's not like they could predict years back, and it's just getting hotter here and colder up there and up north, and we just don't really know what's going to go on. But that's our peek at the weather, and thank you for tuning in. All right, there we are for our finishing remarks of this episode of Intelligent Ramblings. Really wanted to thank the folks that tuned in tonight. Hey, Jill. Excuse me.
Uh,
Like I said,
Bill says, hey, Jill.
um,
Hey, she says,
I heard her
on in the background.
in the background. That's no
John's
problem.
waving.
That's that's the wonderful part about having your own show. You can make your own rules. If we want to say hey to Jill, we
That's
will.
right. That's right. Absolutely.
But I apologize if I seem like I'm a little out of sorts. I can't. I think this illness is affecting my brain a little bit to where I can't talk.
We barely noticed, Bill.
well, no,
You're ver-
yeah, it's pretty much par for the course. I was asking her to check on something for me, and I saw this. Congratulations to the Georgia men's basketball team that won 20 games this year and lost in the semifinals of the NIT to Seton Hall 84-67. I guess that was last night. Seton Hall, by the way, that's their 25th win of the season. So, but congratulations to the Round Ball Dogs. That's
Way to go, Dogs.
I don't care if you make the Final Four. Listen, would you rather lose in the first round of the NCAA or make the Final Four of the NIT? I think I'd rather be playing for a championship of some sort. But that's just
absolutely.
me.
I absolutely
I'm a
agree.
competitive kind of guy.
The only comment that we missed tonight was Kenny said that was when we could trust the news to be unbiased truth.
Oh, when Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley and that crowd were on? Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they had an agenda in those days.
No, I don't think there was an agenda, and I don't think it was NBC being more liberal and ABC being more conservative or Fox being conservative or anything like that. It was just the news. They came on and said what was going on.
Well, when I was taught, and my major broadcast journalism professor at the University of Georgia, Bill Martin, God rest his soul, we were told to try and get both sides of the story and be objective. Nobody cared what you thought unless you labeled it commentary. It's not your purpose to give your spin on the news. It's your purpose to deliver the facts, get both sides of the story, and let the chips fall where they may. And now you got people doing editorializing, masquerading as news. Listen,
Yes.
I can listen to the facts and make up my own mind. I don't need you to tell me what to think.
Absolutely.
Gary, was it wasn't there something called the fairness doctrine that
There was, and
more
that
or less
was made.
governed the newscasts?
Yeah, well, that was, and it was particularly in political situations, John, the fairness.
Thank you,
doctrine.
Emma Jean.
And you were particularly, say, if you had an axe to grind or something and you were on the news and you presented that as some sort of fact from one side, it was almost an unwritten obligation to get the other side, particularly in terms of politics. I don't know how that is treated or even enforced or even semi-enforced anymore. A lot of times people will recuse themselves. If you've got like a public figure, like a broadcaster who runs for public office, sometimes they will recuse themselves during the political season, because otherwise you've got like someone will say you've got an unlimited forum or an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it is to portray your point of view, and your opponent has zilch. So the station would be then obligated, more or less, they say, to provide the station to the other person, and usually that just ain't happening. Equal time. Yeah, that just ain't happening. Sorry.
Well, you can follow up your own remarks at facebook.com groups, Intelligent Ramblings Friends. And if you've got anything else you wanted to say that we didn't cover, or you have any ideas about what you'd like us to talk about in particular, please go to our Intelligent Ramblings Friends group. Join the group, and that way you can remark and say whatever you want to say and tell us what you want to hear. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate the folks that are going to listen to us after we go off the air. And please tell your friends, relatives, and your enemies about us. And if you tell us who your enemy is, I'll pick on them the whole game. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with that. So, if you really don't like somebody, tell them to come on here and tell me who they are, and I'll mess with them the whole time. Anyway,
They will.
appreciate everybody being here. Gary, John, thank you. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope everybody else has a wonderful week out there that's watching us. And we will catch
All
you
right,
guys next time on Intelligent Ramblings.
Good night, everybody. Have a great night. God bless.